Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand the Rangers podcast. This is your extra show for the week, and my name is Cammy Bell. I am your host, as always, and here to talk to me about the beginning of the Barry Ferguson managerial era. I've got not just one, but two excellent guests. First of all, let me introduce you to Rob Shorthouse. Rob, thank you very much for coming on.
Cammy, my friend, it's been too long since I've been
Too soon. Wow.
Too soon. Yeah, I'm just but that's an auspicious start. No, it's been too long since I've been on extra, so I'm delighted to be back, and there is certainly plenty to talk about.
Yeah, there certainly is. And joining my friend over from the Far East is Scott Semple. Scott, your debut on Extra, my friend. Let's hope that you've got a better introduction than Rob.
Yeah, this does feel too soon, even though it's my first time. So, thanks for having me on.
The guys are on to have a chat about ORSA, our Oceanic Ranger Supporters Association. The boys are very, very much involved within that, and we will talk about that in due course. But Scott, I'll kick off with yourself. It's been an interesting week in the life of Rangers. Philippe Clement given his jotters on Sunday, and a fairly quick announcement, it has to be said, of Barry Ferguson, who has come in as head coach and brought in, I think it's fair to say, a wealth of Rangers royalty behind him. Neil McCann, Al McGregor, and also Billy Dodds has come in to make up the coaching staff. Scott, just keen to get your thoughts on obviously those events, your thoughts on Ferguson coming in as manager. As I say, it's been a bit whirlwind, and we're just kind of catching up with all of our Rangers supporters in terms of their opinions as well.
Yeah, I must admit it was a surprise. I wasn't surprised to see Clement go. We all know that should have been, happened before. But I think the swiftness, of the board to appoint the new management team was a surprise, and maybe a bigger surprise that it was Barry and his team. But I think, with a bit of reflection, I can understand what they were trying to do, given the we know the season's over, but effectively not in Europe. We still got a little bit to play for there, and I think they needed to find someone quick who knew what was required. And remember, Barry's been an ambassador at the club for a while anyway, so he's been watching what's going on the pitch. So after the initial surprise, it kind of made sense to me, for this type of appointment, and even more so the backroom staff that he's put in place. Every one of them knows, with the exception of the Moroccan chap, I've forgotten his name. Everybody knows that all those other people in the backroom staff know what's involved with playing for Rangers. Overall surprised, but understand why they did it.
Rob, as we were talking there as well, Scott was saying about Sama Chari obviously staying in. He was just very recently brought into the club. I think it feels very much like a Niles Coppin appointment, that assistant manager role, but he obviously remains in place at the moment. What was your reaction to hearing the Ferguson announcement? I think Scott's absolutely on the button, by the way. Clement, I think, was overdue a sacking, if I'm being perfectly honest. It should have happened after Queen's Park, but yeah, time ran its course.
Oh, look, on the Clement sacking, there is no doubt that he's been bulleted, not just immediately after Queen's Park, but arguably well before that, Cammy. I think the nature of the performances that we've seen, the baffling nonsense that he used to come away with after the games that sort of defied any kind of logic, and also were in complete opposite to what our own eyes could see was happening on the pitch. He was a dead man walking a long time ago, and it's, as I say, to me, it's fairly inexplicable that he's lasted as long as he did, because he should have been turfed out immediately after the Queen's Park debacle. The St Mirren performance, I know that David Martin and Andy covered it on the flagship earlier on this year, but watching that back, it is an absolute disgrace of a performance. And while we're rightly concentrating on the manager and the new management team, the players should be absolutely ashamed of themselves for the way in which they have performed, not just this season, but a lot of players who've been there for a while, over a course of a couple of seasons, really need to take a long, hard look at themselves, because they can't just continue to do this rinse and repeat of getting another coach fired, and then we move on, and we all have a good laugh about it up at the training centre. We cannot continue to do this. So Clement gone. Completely agree. As I say, the only surprise to me is that he wasn't completely sort of thrown out the building after the Queen's Park result. When it comes to the Barry Ferguson appointment, so look, I mean, this is why we're football fans. I mean, I do differ from Scott on this. I mean, while I understand, I suppose, the logic, I was not just surprised. I was not disappointed, but I just don't understand. I didn't understand it at the time, because if you look at them individually, and my thinking has moved on, but my initial reaction was, you look at these people individually. You've got Ferguson, absolutely zero coaching credentials that would say he should be considered for the Rangers job, even in the short term. You've got Alan McGregor, who I don't actually think has got any coaching qualifications at all. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but he's not qualified. You've got Neil McCann, who has had limited experience as a coach or part of a management team, and you've got Billy Dodge, who's got the most of it. And you have an assistant manager that was brought in a few weeks ago, and he's passed over for these guys. So I didn't think it made any real sense from a footballing point of view. And I know Martin was making that point on the flagship earlier on this week as well. From a footballing point of view, it just doesn't make any sense. Where I have reflected, and we'll talk about it in relation to the game, is that maybe it's the collection, the group that actually makes sense, because individually it just doesn't make any sense. But perhaps it's the group and the impact that they can have as a collective that actually is where this may work. Because look, and I know we're going to talk about the game, there was elements to the performance last night which were utterly shambolic, and but there were also signs of at least a bit of spirit, quick decision making, and understanding that we couldn't just limp towards another defeat. Changes were made, and that is different, and perhaps it's the power of the group that may be something that brings us success. But as I say, my initial reaction was, this is fairly crackers, because none of them are qualified to do the job that they're asked to be doing.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It has been interesting to see the reaction across the board. The thing that has been interesting to me, and I'll stick with you, Rob, as we talk about how the game unfolded within the first 15 minutes, was against Queen's Park. I thought the Rangers had gears that they certainly could have went up, and they took far too easy an approach to the game, and ultimately it's cost us our progression in the Scottish Cup. Against St Mirren, it was so poor. There was no energy. There was no dynamism. And so going into the game against Killie last night at Rugby Park, I can't remember what it's called now. It's like the BBPA Stadium. It's always Rugby Park. I don't care. I don't buy into these corporate names. But what I was hoping for was just a little bit more confidence, a little bit more energy, being able to take care of the ball better, because I think, in the games that I mentioned in the run-up, we've been far too sloppy with it. Our finishing has been poor, erratic, where, we've had chances and spun them. And what we ended up getting was almost akin to a game of basketball. The tempo was absolutely massive. Kelly came out the blocks really, really well. 2-0 down within, as I say, 15 minutes. A really, really poor goal to lose at a corner where Robin Proper completely loses his man. The midfield and defence are at 6s and 7s, and a great finish for the second goal. But although we did have a chance in the opening minutes, the main takeaway from that opening spell was just how shaky we looked. Like, it looked like as if we were, playing in some sort of cauldron that the players just couldn't deal with, and they seemed to have forgot that they were actually in Kilmarnock. A real problem dealing with high balls, being moved off the ball, not standing your ground physically. Clinton Ciala and Robin Proper were the two key culprits for me. It was just so disappointing to watch, because you were hoping that they would have had a degree of confidence instilled in them with a managerial change, albeit Barry Ferguson had very limited time with him between his appointment and the game last night. But you're watching this and thinking, how much worse can it really get?
Aye, yeah. I mean, it was pretty bad, wasn't it? I mean, to me, the problem we've had with the team is sort of typified by 3 S's. We've been slow, we've been soft, and at times we've been scared. That lack of confidence physically, where I think I can't remember as soft and as a Rangers team lacking in physicality as this, and so slow, both in terms of their pace, but also the way that they move the ball around. That's been the ongoing problem. And we saw that in spades in that first sort of 15, 25 minutes of the game last night. I mean, the lack of confidence, the lack of belief. There was just people were looking about, completely bewildered by what was going on round about them. They were getting bullied, they were getting pushed about. Kilmarnock were absolutely sort of smelling blood and knew that if they had a go at us, that they would get something out of us. So as I say, those kind of 3 S's have been evident there. And look, Barry and the management team couldn't possibly change that in the time that they've got. But I think all of us looking at the game after 15 minutes and the way that we were playing and the disorganised shambles that was unfolding in front of us, the performances by Nsiala and Proper, by the way, was an absolute disgrace for most of that game. And, he's very, very fortunate that it wasn't him that was hauled off after half an hour. Barry could not change that in the time that he's had, as you rightly said, but you're looking at that after 15 minutes and you're thinking this could be, a real humiliation. And we were lucky, not lucky, I suppose. Barry sort of stepped in and took a very, very brave decision to change it very early in the game, and that paid dividends.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it was 6-5 in Pickham in terms of who you would have seen taken off between NCI and Proper, as Rob said there. I mean, the two of them were a complete shit show. Just really, really struggled to be able to stand their ground. I think we're fortunate Kelly had another couple of chances that on another day they end up getting in, and it's something I kind of enjoyed that Robin Proper a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago now, probably had a little bit of a purple patch, and I thought, right, okay, maybe he's settling into it. NCL, I'll give a degree of a break to, because I think this is now him in double figures for his professional games. So there's obviously a big learning curve on the back of that. But I think the thing that's just disappointing is, if you're playing against higher level opposition that can move the ball around you and they're moving it at pace, but they're clinical in what they're doing, then to a certain extent you can kind of accept it. But these were the fundamental basics. And, they came to Scotland knowing that it was a physical game. Proper has been here well long enough to understand that, there is definitely an industrious nature to our game. But yeah, it was just a terrible performance from both of them. And as Rob rightly said, you absolutely have to give credit to the manager for making the change on 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think like you, I would give Nsiala a bit more leeway. He's a young player. He wouldn't really be in the frame if it wasn't for the injuries. To Suter, to Balogun, even Sterling as well. There's stronger players that should be in that defence. But if you think back to that St Mirren goal the other day, where he was literally just nudged off the ball, and the St Mirren players knocked it in. There was that incident last night as well. The exact same thing happened. He was just, it's not even bullying. It's just it was really sort of poor, for him to sort of give up that easily. So when I saw that happen, he was definitely the one to come off. And as we've mentioned, for Barry and his team to make that call, in his first game as a Rangers manager, because like, if you can think, it's probably on one hand that I can think of the amount of times that a player for Rangers has been subbed off in the first half. So for him and the team to have the the courage to do that, hats off to them, because And that was the message to the players on the pitch. We're not standing for this. They couldn't wait to half time to get them into the dressing room to give them a rollicking. It was right. We're doing this now. This is the message that we're sending to you. If you're not, if you're going to struggle, we're going to take you off. So, well done to them for doing that.
Clermont would never have done that, by the way. Clermont would never in a million years have had the courage to do that.
Literally exactly what I was about to say. I know that we'll do the old, if that had been under Clermont, we would have lost it, blah, blah. But it comes into these key decisions, because that was exactly what I was about to say, Rob, in terms of, not even just necessarily in terms of conceding goals, but we've talked across the course of this season, and it's more prevalent away from home, of course, because our away form has been so poor, that if we haven't conceded a goal, we've conceded time in the game. And what I mean by that is, a first half where we've started so poorly, we haven't been able to make any changes. We haven't made some of those hard decisions, I think is probably the best way I could say it. And Clermont's default to that was, well, I'll make a change at half time. And if I'm being perfectly honest with you, the way how that half was going, if that change hadn't happened, I genuinely think that we could have went in 3 or 4 down at half time, and the game at that point was absolutely out of sight.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. I had to change it. It did have a positive impact. And actually, just as you were saying that, Cammy, I hadn't really considered that at the time. I was thinking of it more from a footballing point of view. But actually, the message that does send to the players, I completely agree with you, Scott, that if you're a player and you have been, working your way through the Clermont regime, where you can have a shocking first half, but you're not going to get subbed off. There's not going to be any consequences. It's just going to sort of limp on to half time, and you might get subbed, you might not. That was a dramatic change in tone, I suppose, from the management team, wasn't it? That we are prepared to step in, we're prepared to make the change, and all of you other players who are on the pitch need to be aware of that. So actually, I think it's a really, really great point that it's not just the footballing or the tactical impact of making a change. There is a deeper message there, which is we're just not going to tolerate this level of nonsense anymore. Which, I mean, you can only applaud, because we've been putting up with this garbage for absolutely ages, and hopefully that message does resonate with the players, and they up their game. Well, we have Barry for the next 3 months.
And Scott, up the game we did as Red Van Yilmaz came on for Clinton Ciala. We move James Tavernier into centre half, and he by default becomes our best centre half. And we're able to get a goal back just 5 minutes later. A great touch inside by Hamza Egeman before he's emptied by one of the Kelly players. Don Robertson, to his credit, allows play to continue. Ball falls to Mohamed Diomande, who just plays a great ball through the channel. Exposed, I think, a lot of space that Kilmarnock, probably with a degree of zealousness and overcommitment, had given us. Vlavkav Cherny is through. He takes a lovely little touch just to steady the ball, because the pace of the ball is so perfect from Diomande that it just opens it right up for him. He takes a little touch and then finishes with his left foot. We had created, as I say, a couple of chances before this. Cyril Dessers had a borderline tap in, which he had missed. Cherny took the responsibility and managed to get us back in the game. And as we're going to talk about how the game kind of unfolds, this was a great time to be able to get it so quickly after the substitution, as Rob said, that it did send a message, and being able to get a foothold back in the game, I think, was pivotal. But from a Rangers team that did look shaky, wasn't taking care of the ball, everything that we've discussed, this was actually a really well taken clinical goal from creation to finish.
Yeah, it was a beautiful goal. That from that first touch from Egeman to get away from his man, and as you say, got sort of wiped out. And then, of course, credit to the ref to play on. I mean, Diomande's ball is just absolutely, the weight, it's absolutely inch perfect. And Cherny hardly even has to break his stride before he takes that touch, and beautifully executed the way that we know he can. And as you say, it came at the right time. We just made the change, and that completely changes the tone then for the halftime team talk. Kilmarnock at that point will know that they're going to be up against it, because you can imagine what was said at halftime. Belief and bravery, and all those sort of messages would have come across. And we obviously, it worked.
And Rob, on that point, and this was something that I really did want to talk about, I'm glad that Scott's brought it up, is we were all saying, 2-0, this is a disaster, I hope he absolutely bollocks them at half-time. There's a part of me that wonders, he very well could have done that, right? Because Ferguson would have been dismayed. I think he's almost got this default expression of he looks a bit pissed off and upset when the camera was panning in on him, and he had plenty of reason to be that feeling those emotions, given the way how we had started the game. I wonder if the team talk had changed, and as Scott suggests, actually what it was about now was less of a kind of kick up the arse. It was more just keep doing what you're doing, keep plugging away. They won't be able to maintain this tempo, and as we've already seen, you've been able to create chances. But for me, Rob, I think that was absolutely the right thing to let them know, and we're going to come on and talk about a player who I'm fairly sure the three of us and a lot of people listening to this and everyone watching last night would have been surprised to see come out for the second half, which was Cyril Dessers. He had a couple of chances, as I say, in the first half, did not cover himself in glory. But Rob, cometh the hour, cometh the Nigerian paradox, as he manages to get his level with a great corner that comes in from James Tavernier. Dessers shakes off his marker, and just for an added little bit of skill, decides to nutmeg the goalkeeper, and it's 2-2 and we're back in it. This was a great finish. And we're going to talk a little bit more on Cyril Dessers in just a moment, but a great decision by the manager to not only keep him on, but whether it was him, whether it was Neil McCann, whomever, just putting their arm around his shoulder and saying, look, keep plugging away and keep doing what you're doing. You'll never be able to fault Cyril Dessers for resilience, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty honking in the first half, but he was in good company in that sense, because there was a lot of players being fairly honking. I mean, he missed. You already mentioned that one chance where he had what looked like a tap in, and he managed to completely fluff it. I mean, on the point about the team talk, I think you're right. So, I mean, I think all of us think that Barry, Alan McGregor, all those kind of strong personalities. What we're looking for is for them to go in and give these guys an absolute doing, because they've been driving us mental for months. But on reflection and having the benefit of time and having watched the game again this morning, we didn't come out in the second half as if we'd been given a bollock, and it did actually seem that we were much more controlled and composed, and we just kept pressing forwards. So it wasn't a sort of running about with your hair on fire type performance coming out for the second half. It was actually quite composed, and we had good control of the ball. So I think probably your assessment's right, Cammy, and that it might not have been a total bollock, and I'm sure there were strong words said in the dressing room, but I think it probably was more in the along the lines of you have the quality to be better than you are doing, and actually if you keep on plugging away at this, chances will come. I mean, on Dessers' first goal, and we should pause before we talk about the second goal, because it's an absolute belter. But on the first goal, that's classic Dessers, isn't it? He has missed chance after chance after chance, but he doesn't let his head go down. He's there in the right place. He heads the ball down. He does all the things you want a striker to do. Scuffs it a wee bit, but it goes right underneath the keeper, and he's scored again. And no matter how many times you knock this boy, he's always coming back and scoring goals. So yeah.
We're absolutely going to do a dedicated series on Patreon about Cyril Dessers. I've got no doubt about it, because we have talked about him for hours and hours of content on there about him as well. Scott, you made mention of the Mohamed Diamandi pass for the Cherny goal. Well, up pops Rid van Yilmaz, or should I say the Galactical David Beckham, with what is, it can only really be described as one of the best passes I think I've ever seen him make, and probably himself as well, actually. A fantastic left-footed direct through ball, takes a bounce on that shitty Kilmarnock surface, but up comes Cyril Dessers again. He reads the ball all through the flight, anticipates the bounce, And I had to rewatch it because initially I thought he's put his laces through it. He's placed it, but he's got it with power. But I did the big man a disservice in my initial thoughts because he actually side foots it past Ahara towards his right hand post. And this is just a great goal. It's a fantastic from the pass all the way through to being able to make the assessment and how to hit it. And the great thing about this is if he takes a touch on that, which let's face it, we've seen him do before, he kills that chance. But absolutely boosted by his first goal, this is just a great finish. And to be honest with you, if the first two goals had taken the wind out of Kilmarnock sails, this one completely sank the ship.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that was the one that it was it knocked as you say, knocked the wind right out of them. But that pass from Yilmaz, I mean, we should just hang that in the Louvre right now. I mean, that was just absolutely exceptional. The weight, it was absolutely perfect for Dessers, and as you say, Dessers is coming over his shoulder, so he's looking back, judged the bounce perfectly. As you said, it's a horrific surface, and the sooner that's ripped up, the better. And the coolness that he has, and this is this is what Dessers, this is drives him crazy to us all, because sometimes he can take 19 touches, and other times he's got composure beyond belief, and that's one of these examples. Just cool as a cucumber, passes it into the side of the net, and effectively wraps up the game.
Yeah, it certainly did. And Rob, Kilmarnock, I think at this stage went from being proactive to reactive because, we spoke on our post-match show on our Patreon site last night that the game really could have been put into 3/3, which was Kilmarnock pretty much dominating the first half an hour, Rangers getting back into up towards the hour mark and being able to get this goal just after that and take the lead, I think was fantastic. The credit I'm going to give Barry Ferguson is, as we've mentioned, that there wasn't a negative reaction from him. It wasn't right, okay, let's hunker down, let's try and see if we can plod our way back into the game. There was a uplift in tempo and concentration and being able to take care of the ball. And I think it's very fair to say that Rangers deserve to be able to take the lead. There was a point, and I think maybe I've got a hangover from Easter Road, where you think, well, we've started well, and then we've started poorly, but we've managed to get a couple of goals, and then we fade out of the game, and then before you know it, you're 3-2 up, and then you are worried about conceding to drop the 2 points. Robin Proper, I think it is fair to say, Sky had put up a stat last night, a bit unfair, I think, but it's merited. When they were showing Clinton Nsiala, and then they put up a graphic of, after his substitution, the shots on goal by both Killie and Rangers, and the tide had definitely turned. But Robin Proper didn't get out of jail. He took a really poor touch, has to commit to being able to make the foul after that poor touch. And by and large, he is, he's not going to look back in this game with any fondness. However, again, to the manager's credit, he makes a double change with about 10 minutes to go. Tom Lawrence and Nadim Bajrami come on for Hadji and Egaman. Just touching on Hamza Egaman for a minute, Rob, I'm keen to get your thoughts on this because it's been interesting to watch. I think, we're concerned a little bit about his form, but I've tried to defend him, I think, in certain circles because he's also been moved in order to accommodate Cyril Dessers. In some cases it's worked, and in other cases it hasn't. He was instrumental in setting up the first goal, and he did take a couple of decent touches. I think he managed to get away with not getting sent off against St Mirren when that decision was overturned. But he cuts a little bit of a frustrated figure for me at times, and I'm hoping it's just a young guy who's a striker who's not getting as many chances through and goal as he would like.
Yeah. I mean, on Egaman, you can still see, I think, even though his form has dipped and, young players, that does happen, you can still see the quality that he's got. There was a couple of occasions, in the build-up to the Czerny goal, as you guys discussed already. He takes a lovely touch. There's a couple of efforts he has, a sort of scissor kick or something that he has at some point as well. Couple of shots over, and he's still getting into relatively decent positions. So I think think maybe he's one of those guys that he might go in sort of gluts of scoring where he'll be super hot, then he'll cool down a bit, and then he'll be hot again. Because I do still think he's got great quality. It'll be interesting to see how his position in the team evolves and where he does end up playing, and whether that is a change. Whether we go back to that Dessers and Egeman, or Danilo and Egeman, having the two of them playing up front. That'll be interesting to see where we go with that. The other thing you sort of mentioned it as well, Cammy, is James Tavernier. He did become by default, as you say, the best centre half on the pitch, but he's played there a couple of times, and I was thinking about it over the course of today. As he's getting older and he is no longer able to be the rampaging going down the wing James Tavernier that was so successful a few years ago, and we all know that that's not him anymore. I wonder actually, if a move to centre half, not permanently perhaps, but that actually that's not a bad position for him. People have talked about whether you could move him into midfield. He could be a central midfielder because of his composure on the ball, but he's been at centre half a few times and he's done all right, and I wonder if he is actually a better option at centre half at the moment rather than bringing on the young boy who's clearly lacking in confidence and his form's not brilliant and all that kind of stuff. So I wonder if actually the management team decide to stick with Tavernier at centre half, and whether that's Yilmaz at right back or whatever. But he's as I say, he's done okay, and he could do a lot of damage, I think, to Nsiala in terms of his overall confidence if they keep on playing him when his form and his confidence are sort of as low as they are at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all hoping that it will be John Souttar or Liam Balogun across in Turkey to start that game and hopefully be able to show that up. I don't think Tav is a bad shout. And the thing I really enjoyed last night, Rob, was there was a point in the first half where Yanis Hadji took a knock, and I'm going to use the old air quotes for that, but he went down rolling about quite a bit theatrically. Tav had the ball, and there was a very momentary discussion, I think, amongst the Rangers players when they had the ball in their own half, whether or not to knock the ball out to get the injury. And all you saw in the TV was James Tavernier with the ball at his feet, screaming at Yanis Hadji to get back up because we were chasing the game at that stage. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think we would hope that with Nsiala's inexperience, but Robin Proper's experience in the games that he's played in and the level that he's played at, he'd be able to be the one to help Nsiala be able to get through that. That hasn't happened when he can't do it when he's playing so poorly at the moment. So, yeah, I think that's fair. I think Tav could be a really great shout for that. Scott, back to yourself, as we managed to very much seal the game up with Nadim Bajrami being able to get through a great ball by Mohamed Diamandi again, this time rather than playing the first time pass. A wonderful touch inside by Cyril Dessers, probably 10 yards inside our half, releases Mo Diamandi. He moves forward with that kind of gait, I think, very reminiscent actually of the manager, where he's coming forward with the ball and he's looking to make the assessment. He slips through Bajrami. Nadim Bajrami has not started life at Rangers well. I think that's perfectly fair to say. However, in comes Billy Dodds. It's a coaching masterclass, and he's now made a player out of Bajrami, Scott.
He has indeed. Yeah, the starting of that move, the ball from Raskin into Dessers. I mean, it's such a beautiful little touch inside, and again, for Diamandi, for him to be able to control that ball in such a short space of time to take him away from the player. I mean, it's the quickness of those passes, and we've spoken about it before about the problem is how slow we've been in the past, but it's just the speed of those passes that creates that chance, and all of a sudden Bajrami's wide open in acres of space, and yeah, he's got the simplest of tasks to do, which it's not always how it finishes with us, but yeah, he's knocked it away bit of a deflection off the keeper, but managed to go inside the post. So well done, Billy Dodds and the attacking coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. Can see him channeling his inner Neil McCann in terms of being able to get through. But Rob, all joking aside, there is something I think which is worth pointing out in that, that when you do have this, we know the managerial changeover, managers in modern football nowadays, they come in teams and then, that team leaves. And we've obviously taken a big step in terms of appointing not just Barry Ferguson, but those support staff that we've mentioned. And Neil McCann, an out and out fighter. Billy Dodds, who again very prolific in the Scottish game, and it's going to be interesting to see as to where he can get some of these players and give them a bit of steer, a little bit of confidence, a little bit of insight. And listen, again, I'm not expecting that you're going to turn players from good to great overnight. But what I do think is worth mentioning that we can get some marginal gains from some of these players. The likelihood that this coaching team is obviously not going to be here across the summer, and then another management team comes in. But right now, in terms of what we can do at the moment, and maybe with one eye on the Europa League, it is about getting certain players who haven't performed at their best and steering them through where they think they can see some improvements. And there's plenty of trophies and medals in that coaching team's cabinets, and that's probably for me where these guys can lean into just listening from them and being able to hear what they think would be the best thing to do in certain situations to be able to create opportunities. And I think that's going to be really interesting. I think that's exactly what Barry Ferguson, by the way, would do with Nico Raskan and Mohamed Diamandi as well. So it'll be interesting to see as to how some of these players develop.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Barry said it I saw his interview in Rangers TV, and he was saying, look, as far as he's concerned, the players are underperforming. There isn't a good deal of quality in the squad that is not being adequately represented in the performances and what we're seeing on the pitch. So I think all of us would agree with that there are decent players there. They're obviously, we'd always sort of want to hark back to the glory days where we had even better players, but the performances that we've got do not sort of tie up with the quality of players that we have. So there is room for improvement. I mean, on Neil McCann, he is somebody I think that's sort of thinks quite deeply about the game. When you listen to his analysis on Sports Scene and various other things, I always find myself agreeing with him. I think he's got a good understanding of the game, and when you align that, I suppose, with his understanding of what it means to play for a big club at Rangers and the expectations that come with that, then I think he's the one out of the group actually that I'm probably most pleased to see there. But it goes back to my point at the beginning. Individually, you can sort of like scratch your head at all of the appointments in some respect. But perhaps it is just that alchemy of the four of them coming together. Their understanding of Rangers, their knowledge of Scottish football, and yeah. So that collective perhaps could actually have a positive impact because, as we've spoken about before on here, Cammy, and it's been well discussed on a lot of shows. There's a cultural issue within the group. The talent, debatably is there for a lot of players, but culturally we're not there. There's not an understanding of what it means to be at a big club, the expectations of winning, every single week, and accepting second best, and all these different things that have driven us completely crazy over these past years and months. So, these guys, if they could do anything, I suppose, is they could take, a stab at trying to address that culture, and that perhaps is the biggest legacy that they could leave for when the new management team comes in, which we have to assume is not going to involve any of those guys at the start of the summer.
Yeah, and as Rob said there, Scott, the interesting thing will be the reaction, because Ferguson had mentioned, I can't remember if it was his unveiling or one of the interviews before that, but one of the things that he had said, Scott, was he's told the players to enjoy it. And I kind of get it now. When I heard that the first time, I was kind of like, oh, Jesus, we all want them hung, drawn and quartered. But he's right. He actually does make a really valid point there about, this is a huge opportunity for some of you who will never play for a club of this size again. Whilst you are here, fit into it and try and relax and to try and enjoy it. And there was an element of composure, which I think helped us win that game last night. But moving on to Saturday afternoon, as we are back to Ibrox and welcome the visit of Motherwell. Motherwell obviously having very recently gone through their own managerial changes. I think the win last night has probably convinced a few thousand of us that were swithering about heading to Ibrox, and after 15 minutes last night, definitely thinking about not going to Ibrox. Now we're looking forward to welcoming Barry back as manager. And it'll be an interesting game for sure. I'll be interested to see what he does with that lineup, as we've mentioned. What that back four will look like. But right now, I'm just enjoying the fact that we've got something positive to talk about Rangers, and I think that you'll feel that from the stands on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I think given the result, given the messaging that's coming from, even from Barry's press conferences, it's all very simple. It's straightforward. There's no sort of fluff to try and disguise anything. We're getting back to sort of basics, and that'll be the message that for sure is going to get back to the players. Let's do your job first, work hard, and then they will start to enjoy it. And once that's in place, players will relax, and the underperformance or the underperforming players, a lot of that will just come because they're low on confidence, and we know what Ibrox is like, to, very, very unforgiving crowd, but it'll be great. I think the Ibrox will be, bursting at the seams, to welcome, Barry back, and let's jump on a bit of positivity, because obviously the bigger games coming up are the Europa ones. So if we can get another good result, another good performance, then the timing of Barry's appointment, has been crucial. Then, depending on how the next two games go.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be fun to go along and as I say, hopefully get a solid result against Motherwell. Some of these players will ideally have a good uplift in terms of the overall confidence and style of play as well. Would be lovely to see as well. Gentlemen, before you go, we have to talk about Orsa, and we've got the convention coming up at the end of May. Rob, you've been able to give me a little bit of the details in terms of some of the guests that you're having along. These events are always absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure you're looking forward to with a degree of excitement and some trepidation.
Yeah, these things always take a bit more organising than you think they're going to, but we're starting to make good progress, and we've got a bunch of events lined up, and we've got the first raft of players announced to be coming out. So we're delighted that Bomber, Ian Durrant, and Davy Robertson. So a real kind of 9 in a row theme. They're the first 3 players that we've got announced. We're still looking, I think, to get some more former players, and perhaps we might be delving back further into the history of the club for our next sort of announcement on players. But we're absolutely delighted to have those 3 coming. Bombers, obviously a Rangers ambassador, so he's coming out. Thanks very much to the club for supporting that. They are taking care of Bombers arrangements. But Ian Durrant and Davy Robertson we've been speaking to over the past wee while, and they've agreed to come as well. So it's going to be a smashing week. End of May in Hong Kong. It'll be hot and sunny, and we've got a bunch of stuff lined up that should make for a week there that will test the liver of even the hardest drinkers. So yeah, Scott, in terms of events, I don't know if you want to sort of go over what we've got planned.
Yeah, sure, happy to do that. So we start on actually Orsa takes place the week after the season finishes. So we're not clashing with any matches. So the first event is on Tuesday, 27th of May, and that's just a sort of welcome meet and greet in our home bar, the Trafalgar. So that will be a sort of gentle. I say that on a Tuesday night. the weekend can start as early as that in Hong Kong. So yeah, we'll have a meet and greet in our bar that first night, and then on the Wednesday we are taking everybody to the Happy Valley races. So there's a horse racing track, very famous one in the middle of the city in Hong Kong, and they do night races every Wednesday, and it's just a brilliant night out. They have bands, there's a beer garden, everybody's sort of dressed up to the nines. So that's a fantastic event. Those events are completely free of charge. The first two. The races, I think it's like £1 to get in, and then if you're actually got your passport with you, it doesn't even cost you £1. So they want you to save your money for the gambling. So that's the Wednesday. That'll be a brilliant night. And then on the Thursday, we've got the first of our paid events, which is a junk trip. So I think just soon after lunchtime, so everybody's hangovers should be under control by then. We'll be setting off on a series of junks from Hong Kong. We'll sail around the harbour. We will then sail over to one of the outlying islands, an island called Lama, where we'll stop for lunch. Some of the seafood there it's so fresh, tasty, it's incredible. We'll finish up lunch, we'll sail off to a beach somewhere, we'll drop anchor, everyone can go for a swim, we'll have music on, the junk will be fully catered, so there's plenty to keep everyone entertained, and I'm sure Rob will attest to as well. Junk trips are just the best ways that you can spend a day in Hong Kong. So that's a sort of not to be missed for anyone that's coming here. And then on the Friday, we have the business of the AGM on the morning. I think that takes place at 10 a.m. After that, we are having a football match at the Hong Kong Football Club. That's also located inside Happy Valley Racetrack. So anybody that fancies coming along, bring their boots. We're just going to have a wee kickabout. We'll get our guests of honour to manage a team each. So that'll be a bit of fun. On the Friday night, we've nothing lined up at the moment, but we hope to be announcing some very special guests soon and an event surrounding that. So watch this space. And then on the Saturday, the 31st of May, is our gala dinner. So that's once again hosted at the Hong Kong Football Club. We've booked a beautiful suite in there. We'll have our guests on stage. It will be a 3-course meal, all inclusive of all drinks, and that will be the sort of showcase to sort of end the events that week. Although on the Sunday we've marked down a sort of farewell drinks for anybody that's still got the willpower to potentially have anything more. We've got a full week of smashing events lined up.
Jesus, Rob, you make this sound like hard work.
There was a lot of mention of the word drink in Scott's little section there. It's look, it's great fun, and those of us who have been to a Rangers convention, be it Orsa or have skipped across to the States for NASA, know it. Look, it's absolutely terrific because you're spending great time in the company of bears. You've got former players there who are like really relaxed and want to just enjoy themselves and spend time and tell stories and all that kind of stuff. So the conventions are absolutely superb. And Scott and I are obviously biased because we live here, but Hong Kong is an amazing place at the best of times. But when you're looking at having hundreds of bears coming from Australia, Europe, the UK, we're really, really looking forward to it. So it is a labour of love. There's a bit of organising that goes on to make it happen, but it's going to be a terrific week. So we just can't wait.
No, fantastic. And, my hat's off to you guys and everyone involved in terms of being able to organise it. All joking aside, these things are very, very difficult to be able to put together. And, you're doing it all as extracurricular activities because everyone's still got their own job and life to be getting on with. So very, very well done to you guys across there. And I'm sure everyone who attends will come back with glowing reports. So, yeah, look forward to hearing about that as well. And I'll hopefully get you gentlemen back on in the run up to it as well, just to see if there's any other updates that we can have people look forward to if they're planning to attend. So if you can, then it would be great to, as Rob said, see all the Bears together as well and enjoying what sounds like a lot of brilliant activities and some great variety in there as well. That will do us for this week on Extra. Please head on over to our Patreon site, patreon.com/Heart and Hand. If you'd love even more Rangers content, our very own Rob Shorthouse is doing a fantastic job going through the review of the Steven Gerrard era as part of our managerial reviews, and has literally just covered the Old Firm 2018 game, which was a very, very enjoyable listen. Well done to you, Rob, and all the boys that are involved within that. Thank you to our producers, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, but mostly thank you so much to my guests. It's we have to work through the time difference here, chaps, but you both have done a sterling job. And Scott, what a tremendous debut. Thank you for coming on, my man.
No, thank you very much. Cammy, if I could just, if anyone wants to know any more about ORSA, please go on to, we've got rangers.hk is our website, and there's a dedicated page called ORSA 25. You'll find all the details of the events, hotel discounts. We've got an event map. Everything's there. So if anybody wants to find anything, please go there. And Cammy, thanks again. Been a pleasure.
Pleasure was all mine, my friend. And our very own Cyril Dessers, Rob Shorthouse. The pod started with a bit of a kind of couple of open goals that you missed, but a very strong finish. And, certainly a man of the match contender.
It's too soon, Cammy. It's too soon. No, listen, I love coming on Extra, and look, you're always kind enough to sort of offer me up a slot, and the time differences don't often work, but I'm glad I did this time, and I really enjoyed talking to you, so thanks very much.
Thank you all for listening. David will be back with the flagship on Monday to unpack the Motherwell game. It's been a pleasure to talk to you as always, and have a great weekend, folks. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.